People are acting like I committed some kind of unforgivable crime, like I'm some kind of monster who destroyed sacred trust and violated the fundamental rules of marriage. It was a joke, a stupid, thoughtless joke made during an argument when I was frustrated and not thinking clearly. I didn't even mean it seriously. Everyone knows I joke when I'm uncomfortable, when conversations get too intense, when I need to deflect from actual issues. And technically, and I know this sounds bad, but hear me out, his brother is family. It's not like I was talking about some random guy I met at a bar or a coworker or a stranger on the street. We're talking about someone who's already part of our lives, who comes to holiday dinners, who's known both of us for years. So, in a weird way, my comment had internal logic to it, even if nobody else seems to understand that logic. I was just trying to make a point about trust, about how secure our relationship should be, about how we shouldn't be threatened by hypothetical scenarios that would never actually happen. He knows I have dark humor. He's known that since we started dating. I didn't expect him to completely freak out like this, to turn one careless comment into a relationship-ending catastrophe. And before anyone asks, no, I didn't cheat. I didn't do anything with his brother. I didn't even think about doing anything with his brother beyond the abstract, hypothetical way you might think about any attractive person you encounter in daily life. I just said it wouldn't count if something hypothetically happened in some alternate universe where I made completely different choices. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. That's the part nobody seems to understand. I was speaking theoretically, philosophically, not literally, not as a confession or admission or declaration of intent, but apparently, saying something is worse than doing something now. Apparently, words have more power than I gave them credit for. Apparently, my husband was listening more carefully than I realized, and apparently, he was recording. Let me back up and explain how this whole nightmare started, because context matters here. Context is everything. And if people understood the full context, they'd see that I'm not the villain everyone's making me out to be. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, I guess, is named David. We've been married for 3 years, together for 5. He's a good guy, stable, reliable, maybe a little boring if I'm being honest. Works in finance, plays golf on weekends, drinks beer with his buddies, watches sports. The kind of man your parents approve of. The kind of man who looks good on paper. His brother Tyler is different. He's younger by 2 years, more spontaneous, more fun. He works as a personal trainer, so he's obviously in great shape, covered in tattoos. Rides a motorcycle. The kind of guy your parents warn you about. The kind of guy who doesn't look good on paper, but looks very good in person. I'm not blind. I can acknowledge that Tyler is objectively attractive. That doesn't mean I want to be with him, or that I've ever seriously considered crossing any lines. It just means I have eyes and a functioning brain that can assess objective reality. David and Tyler have always been close, despite being different. They do that brother thing, where they insult each other constantly, but would probably fight anyone else who insulted either of them. Family dinners at the parents' house happen every month. Holiday celebrations, birthday parties. The whole extended family is very involved in each other's lives, which means I see Tyler regularly, which means we've developed our own friendship separate from David, which means we text occasionally about workout tips, or restaurant recommendations, or funny videos, which is completely normal and appropriate given that he's my brother-in-law, and we're both adults capable of maintaining platonic relationships. But David has always been weird about it. Jealous in this subtle way he tries to hide, but doesn't hide well. He makes little comments about how often Tyler and I text. He gets annoyed when I laugh too hard at Tyler's jokes. He acts like every normal interaction between us is loaded with hidden meaning. He's your brother, I'd say, exasperated. Why are you being weird about me being friendly with your own brother? I'm not being weird, David would insist. I just think you could have appropriate boundaries. We have appropriate boundaries. We're friends. That's what families do. They're friends with each other. This argument, or variations of it, had been happening for over a year. David getting suspicious and jealous over nothing. Me getting defensive and annoyed at being accused of something I wasn't doing. The night everything exploded started like any other argument. We were at home on a Tuesday evening. David came home from work stressed about something. A project deadline, a difficult client, I don't remember. He was in a mood, looking for a fight, and I was tired of being his emotional punching bag. I was on the couch, scrolling through social media on my phone, half watching some show, trying to decompress from my own stressful day. I'd had a terrible meeting with my boss, dealt with a rude client, sat in traffic for 90 minutes. I wanted peace. I wanted quiet. I wanted to zone out and not think about anything. But David came in, already wound up. You were texting Tyler again, he said, dropping his briefcase by the door. Not, hello. Not, how was your day? Just an accusation right out of the gate. I didn't even look up from my phone. He sent me a funny video. I sent a laughing emoji. That's not texting. That's acknowledging receipt of a video. You're always texting him. I'm really not. You're being paranoid again. I'm not paranoid. I just think it's weird how close you two are. I finally looked up, already annoyed. He's your brother. He's family. Should I ignore him? Pretend he doesn't exist? What exactly do you want from me? I want you to have appropriate boundaries. We have appropriate boundaries. You're inventing problems that don't exist. The argument escalated from there. Back and forth, the same points we'd made 100 times before. Him accusing me of being too friendly with Tyler. Me accusing him of being irrationally jealous. Neither of us listening to the other. Both of us just waiting for our turn to talk. Then David said something that pushed me over the edge. So, you think cheating is fine now? Is that where we're at? I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd, so over the top, so completely disconnected from reality. Oh, relax, I said, rolling my eyes. If it was with your brother, it wouldn't even count. He's family. I laughed harder at my own joke, at the ridiculousness of the whole conversation, at how dramatic David was being over literally nothing. But David didn't laugh. He just stopped talking, stopped moving, stood completely still, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. The room went completely silent except for the TV in the background, some commercial selling laundry detergent. Then he looked at me slowly, deliberately, and asked in this very calm, very quiet voice, "Say that again." Something about his tone made my stomach flip, but I was committed now. I'd made the joke. Backing down would look like I actually meant it, like I was confessing to something real. So I rolled my eyes, trying to play it off as nothing. You're being dramatic. It was a joke. Obviously, I was joking. He nodded once. Just once. Okay. That's all he said. Then he turned around, walked into his office, and closed the door. I sat there on the couch, feeling uneasy but not sure why. David had walked away from arguments before. He wasn't a yeller or a thrower, or someone who needed to win every fight. Usually he'd cool off for an hour, come back out, and we'd order dinner and pretend nothing happened. So I figured that's what would happen this time too. I was wrong. Let me explain why I said what I said, because I think people need to understand my perspective here. I think, if you could see things from my point of view, you'd realize I wasn't being malicious or serious or confession something real. I was making a point about the absurdity of his jealousy. I was using exaggeration to show him how ridiculous he was being. It's a rhetorical technique, taking someone's argument to its logical extreme to demonstrate how flawed the underlying premise is. David was acting like I was having some kind of inappropriate relationship with Tyler when we were literally just friendly family members who occasionally exchanged text messages. So I made an outrageous statement, suggesting that even physical involvement with Tyler wouldn't count because he's family, to show David how absurd his baseline accusations were. If he couldn't even handle me texting his brother, how would he handle me saying that physical contact wouldn't even register as real cheating because of the family connection? The shock of that statement was supposed to reset his thinking, make him realize he was being irrational. That was the intent. That was the logic. Obviously, in hindsight, it didn't land the way I intended, but I maintain that my reasoning was sound. I was using hyperbole to make a point. That's what people do in arguments. You don't mean every word literally. You're trying to illustrate something, to make the other person see their position from a different angle. What I conveniently didn't mention to David, what I'm barely admitting to myself even now, is that there might have been some truth buried in the joke. Not that I wanted to do anything with Tyler, but that I'd thought about it, that I'd noticed him in ways that maybe weren't entirely sisterly. That there had been moments, brief, fleeting moments I'd immediately dismissed, where I'd wondered what might happen in an alternate reality where I'd met Tyler first instead of David. I'd flirted with Tyler before. Nothing serious, nothing intentional, just that kind of banter that exists in the grey area between friendly and something else. I'd complimented his appearance maybe more than was strictly necessary. I'd once told someone at a party that Tyler was the better-looking brother, before realizing David was standing right behind me and could hear every word. I'd liked Tyler's social media posts, all of them, including the shirtless gym photos that David definitely noticed me liking. I'd laughed too loud at his jokes. I'd touched his arm when talking to him at family gatherings. I'd made comments about how family dinners were awkward for other reasons that everyone laughed at, but David didn't find funny. But none of that meant anything. None of that was cheating or confession or indication of actual intent. It was just noticing someone, acknowledging attraction. The kind of thing that happens in every long-term relationship when you encounter other attractive humans in the world. I would never act on it. That's the key point everyone seems to be missing. Thoughts and actions are different things. Jokes and reality are different things. I can make an outrageous statement without it reflecting my actual values or intentions. It was just words, but apparently, words were enough. That night, after David shut himself in his office, I figured he'd come out eventually, and we'd have a tense dinner, and go to bed angry, and things would be weird for a few days until we both forgot about it and moved on. That's not what happened. What actually happened, what I didn't know at the time, was that David was in his office doing something very deliberate and very calculated. He wasn't cooling off. He wasn't playing video games or scrolling through his phone or working late to avoid me. He was methodically going through security camera footage from our house. We have cameras in the living room, the kitchen, the entryway, installed after a break-in scare in our neighborhood a year ago. They record everything. They save everything to a cloud server that keeps footage for 90 days. David was searching through months of footage, looking for every time I'd made a comment about Tyler. Every time I'd joked about him. Every time I'd said something that could be taken the wrong way if you were listening for it. He found clips of me laughing when someone at a party said, "Keep it in the family," after I'd been talking about how handsome Tyler looked that night. He found footage of me saying, during a dinner party with friends, that if I had to be with anyone in David's family, obviously it would be Tyler. He found me saying it wouldn't count in the context of a game we'd been playing about hypothetical scenarios, and he started editing, cutting, compiling, creating a short video montage of me making jokes about his brother over the course of several months, jokes I'd forgotten I'd made, comments I'd thought were harmless, moments that looked very different when strung together in sequence. I had no idea this existed, no idea he was collecting evidence, no idea he was building a case. The next day was Saturday. We had plans to go to his parents' house for a family gathering, his mom's birthday celebration. Nothing fancy, Just a casual afternoon barbecue with the whole extended family. I considered cancelling. Things were still tense from the night before. David had slept in the guest room. We hadn't spoken at breakfast. The silence in the house was oppressive and uncomfortable. But cancelling would have required explaining why we weren't coming, and I didn't want to get into it with his mother. Didn't want to admit we'd had a fight. Didn't want to deal with the questions and the concern and the family getting involved in our private business. So we went. We got in the car together and drove in silence to his parents' house, both of us pretending everything was fine, both of us planning to get through the afternoon and deal with our issues later. When we arrived, everyone was already there. David's parents, obviously. Tyler showed up about 20 minutes after us, loud and cheerful as always. David's aunt and uncle. 2 cousins I didn't know well. My own parents, who'd been invited because our families had gotten close over the years. Everyone laughing and talking and eating. Normal family gathering energy. Nobody sensing the tension between David and me because we were both good at faking normalcy in public. The afternoon progressed normally. Burgers on the grill, potato salad, someone's homemade dessert, kids running around the yard, adults clustering in groups having separate conversations. I was talking to my mom and David's mom about something innocuous, a show we'd all been watching, maybe, or plans for an upcoming holiday, when David stood up from his seat at the patio table. He cleared his throat, loud enough that conversation started dying down, loud enough that people turned to look at him. "Hey everyone," he said, his voice calm and pleasant. "I just want to clear something up real quick. Won't take long." I felt a spike of anxiety but didn't know why. He was smiling. He looked relaxed. But something about his body language was wrong. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to sound casual, trying to laugh like whatever he was about to say would obviously be funny. He pulled his phone out of his pocket, started walking toward the house. "Just give me 1 second. I want to show everyone something." My heart started racing. "David, what?" But he was already inside, and people were looking at me with mild curiosity, waiting to see what he wanted to show everyone. 30 seconds later, David came back out with a cable. He connected his phone to his parents' TV, the big one they have in the family room that's visible through the open patio doors. "David, seriously, what are you doing?" I stood up now, my voice higher than normal, trying to maintain composure but feeling panic rising in my chest. He pressed play on his phone. The TV screen filled with footage, our living room, me on the couch, my voice coming through the speakers, loud and clear. "If it was with your brother, it wouldn't even count. He's family." Laughter, my laughter, following the words. The whole backyard went silent. Then the video cut to another clip, a party at our house from months ago, me talking to friends, Tyler in the background. I mean, if I had to pick someone from David's family, obviously Tyler. He's objectively the attractive one. More laughter from me. Another clip. Game night. Someone asking hypothetical questions. Would it count as cheating if it was with family? I don't think so. It's like a grey area. Cut to another moment. Tyler posting something on social media, me reacting. Keep it in the family, right? My voice joking. People laughing in the background. The montage went on for maybe 90 seconds. Clip after clip of me making comments about Tyler, joking about family, suggesting that involvement with Tyler would somehow be categorically different from normal infidelity because of the family connection. When edited together like this, it didn't look like harmless jokes. It looked like a pattern. It looked like something I'd been thinking about for a long time. It looked damning. The video ended. Silence. Complete, total silence, except for birds chirping in the background and the distant sound of traffic. I was frozen, standing in the middle of the patio, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath me. Then the reaction started. My mother's face had drained of all color. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me, like I'd transformed into someone completely different right in front of her eyes. My father set down his plate very carefully, his jaw clenched, his face red. David's mother had her hand over her mouth, looking back and forth between me and David and Tyler, trying to process what she'd just heard. Tyler looked absolutely horrified. He stood up from his chair and took 3 steps backward, putting distance between us, his expression a mixture of shock and disgust. David's aunt whispered something to her husband. The cousins stared at their phones, suddenly very interested in not making eye contact with anyone. I found my voice finally, high and desperate. "Turn that off! It was a joke! All of it was jokes!" But it was too late. Everyone had heard it. Everyone had seen it. There was no taking it back, no explaining it away, no convincing them they'd misunderstood. David stood next to the TV, arms crossed, looking at me with an expression of complete calm. Like he'd just presented a business proposal and was waiting for questions. My mother spoke first, her voice shaking. "Why would you even say something like that? About your husband's brother, in front of people? I didn't mean, they were jokes." My voice cracked. I could feel tears starting, not from sadness but from pure humiliation. You can't just edit together random comments out of context and... Out of context? My father stood up now, his voice hard. What context makes those comments acceptable? What context makes it okay to talk about your brother-in-law that way? I never did anything. I never touched him. I never even... That's not the point. My father's voice rose, rare for him. He almost never yelled. The point is, you thought about it enough to joke about it. You thought about it enough to make comments about it multiple times. That's disgusting. David's mother looked at David, her eyes wet. "Why are you still married to her? How have you tolerated this?" David shrugged, still calm. "I haven't been tolerating it. I've been documenting it, waiting for the right moment." Tyler, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was tight, controlled, angry. "I never want to be in the same room with her again. I don't care if we're family. I don't care what holidays are coming up. She's not my sister-in-law anymore. She's just someone I used to know." "Tyler, please." I took a step toward him. He took 2 steps back, holding up his hand. Don't come near me. Don't talk to me. Don't text me. We're done. Whatever friendship you think we had is over." I looked around the patio desperately, looking for anyone who might be on my side, anyone who might see this as the massive overreaction it obviously was. Nobody met my eyes. They were all looking at the ground, at their phones, at each other, anywhere but at me. "This is insane," I said, my voice breaking. "You're all acting like I committed some unforgivable sin. I made some jokes in poor taste. That's it. That's all this is." "No," David said quietly. "This is you revealing what you actually think. This is you showing everyone who you really are when you think it doesn't matter. This is you being honest for once." I turned to him, anger replacing humiliation. "You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to humiliate me in front of both our families. You could have just talked to me. We could have worked this out privately." "Like we've been working it out for the past year?" David asked. "Like all those times I asked you to have appropriate boundaries with Tyler and you called me paranoid and jealous and insecure? Like that kind of working it out?" "I was trying to reassure you. I was trying to show you there was nothing to worry about." "By joking about sleeping with my brother?" "Yes. Very reassuring." The sarcasm in his voice was cutting. David's father, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. "I think you should leave." I stared at him. "What?" "I think you should go. This is my house. It's my wife's birthday celebration, and you've caused enough disruption. Please leave." "You're kicking me out?" I looked at David. "You're just going to let your dad kick me out?" David reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, walked over to me and handed it to me. "You should probably read this tonight." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, more text messages between Tyler and me, more social media interactions, more evidence he'd been collecting. Underneath those was a set of papers with legal letterhead, divorce papers, and attached to the divorce papers was a handwritten note in David's neat printing. Family jokes stay in the family. You don't. I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face now. You're divorcing me over this, over some stupid jokes. I'm divorcing you because you crossed a line and then acted like that line didn't exist. I'm divorcing you because you disrespected me, my brother, and our marriage repeatedly. I'm divorcing you because I don't trust you anymore, and I never will again. But I didn't even do anything. You thought about it, you talked about it, you justified it. The only reason you didn't do it is because Tyler has better sense than you do. David stepped back. You need to leave now. David, please. Now, Sarah. Not screamed, not shouted, just stated firmly. Final. I looked around one more time. My mother had tears in her eyes but wasn't moving to defend me. My father wouldn't look at me at all. David's mother had her arm around Tyler, comforting him like he was the victim here. Nobody was on my side. Nobody was going to defend me or argue for me or suggest this was all a misunderstanding. I was alone. I grabbed my purse from the patio table and walked to my car, trying to maintain some dignity, trying not to break down completely until I was out of sight. As I drove away, I could see them all in the rearview mirror, still standing there, watching me go. Not one person ran after me. Not one person called my name. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've been living in this nightmare of my own creation, trying to figure out how everything went so wrong so fast. David hasn't come home. He's staying at Tyler's apartment, which feels like another twist of the knife. Of all the places he could stay, he chose his brother's place, the brother I supposedly wanted to be with, the brother who now apparently hates me. My parents have called twice. Both conversations were brief and painful. They're disappointed. They're embarrassed. They don't understand how they raised someone who would behave this way. I tried to explain it was just jokes. They said jokes reveal truth. I said it was taken out of context. They said there is no context that makes those comments acceptable. I have no defense that doesn't sound like more justification, no explanation that doesn't make me look worse. My friends, the few I've told about this, are split. A couple think David overreacted, that publicly humiliating me was cruel and unnecessary. But most think I deserve what I got, that I played stupid games and won stupid prizes, that I should have known better than to repeatedly joke about inappropriate relationships. Even the friends, who are sympathetic to me, admit they'd probably react the same way if their partner made similar comments about their siblings. I've spent the past 3 days replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out where the line between joking and confessing actually is. Because I genuinely didn't mean those comments seriously. They were provocative statements designed to get laughs or make points or deflect from real issues. They weren't confessions of actual desires. Except, were they? If I'm being completely honest with myself, and I'm not sure I want to be, there was something there. Some small part of me that was attracted to Tyler. Some small part that enjoyed the attention he gave me. The way he laughed at my jokes. The way he looked at me sometimes when David wasn't watching. I never planned to act on it. I never seriously considered leaving David for Tyler or initiating anything inappropriate. But the thoughts were there. The awareness was there. The possibility existed in my mind as something more than pure abstraction. And maybe that's what David saw. Maybe that's what he'd been seeing for months. Not that I was actively pursuing his brother, but that I was keeping the door open, maintaining the option, making sure Tyler knew I noticed him, that I appreciated him, that under different circumstances something might happen. Maybe that's why the jokes felt like betrayals to David, because they weren't entirely jokes. They were trial balloons. They were me testing boundaries and gauging reactions and keeping possibilities alive. But I still didn't cheat. That's what I keep coming back to. Whatever thoughts I had, Whatever comments I made, whatever attraction existed, I never acted on it. I never crossed the actual line from inappropriate thoughts to inappropriate actions. Doesn't that count for something? Doesn't restraint matter? Doesn't the fact that I maintained physical boundaries mean anything? Apparently not. Apparently, in David's mind, and in everyone else's mind based on their reactions, the thoughts are just as bad as the actions. The jokes are just as damaging as actual betrayal. The possibility is just as threatening as the reality. And maybe they're right. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong about where lines should be drawn. But that doesn't make this fair. That doesn't make what David did okay. He humiliated me. He took private moments and private comments and made them public. He turned both our families against me. He destroyed my reputation and my relationships in one calculated move. How is that not worse than anything I did? How is deliberate, planned revenge not more cruel than thoughtless comments? I keep thinking about that moment on the patio when he played the video, the satisfaction in his eyes, the calm in his voice. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed watching me squirm. He enjoyed seeing me exposed and humiliated in front of everyone. What kind of person does that to someone they supposedly love? What kind of person plans that kind of public destruction? A hurt person, maybe. A betrayed person. A person who's been watching his wife edge closer and closer to infidelity with his own brother and has finally had enough. But still, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. I made jokes. He ended my marriage and turned my family against me. Those aren't equivalent responses. The divorce papers are sitting on my kitchen table. I haven't signed them yet. Part of me keeps thinking David will change his mind, will realize he overreacted, will come home so we can talk about this like adults. But he's not going to change his mind. I can feel that reality settling over me like a heavy blanket. He meant what he said. He wants out. He's done. And everyone supports his decision. Everyone thinks I'm the villain here. Everyone thinks I got exactly what I deserved. Maybe I did. Maybe karma is real and swift and ruthless. Or maybe everyone is overreacting to comments that weren't meant to be taken seriously. I honestly don't know anymore. I've lost all perspective on this situation. I can't tell what's reasonable and what's not. Can't tell if I'm the victim or the perpetrator. Can't tell if I should be apologizing or defending myself. All I know is that my life has imploded over words, over jokes, over hypothetical statements about scenarios that never happened and never would have happened. And now I have to live with the consequences. My sister called last night. She's the only family member who's actually willing to have a real conversation with me instead of just expressing disappointment and hanging up. "I need you to be honest with me," she said after I finished explaining my version of events. "Did you want something to happen with Tyler?" I hesitated. I don't know. Maybe, in some abstract way, but I never would have acted on it. That's not the point, Sarah. The point is, David felt like you wanted it to happen. He felt like you were keeping that door open, and instead of just asking you directly or setting clear boundaries, you made jokes that confirmed his fears. So this is my fault? I'm not saying fault. I'm saying you created a situation where David felt threatened and disrespected repeatedly, and when he finally confronted you about it, you made it worse by joking about the exact thing he was worried about. I was trying to show him how ridiculous he was being. By suggesting that sleeping with his brother wouldn't count as cheating. Sarah, come on. You're smarter than this. You have to know how that sounded. I was quiet for a long time. I didn't mean it the way it came out. But that's how it came out, and you've apparently been making comments like that for months. David didn't just react to one joke. He reacted to a pattern. He still didn't have to humiliate me like that. No, he didn't. That was cruel. I'm not defending what he did, but you have to understand why he felt like he needed to do something dramatic. You weren't listening to him. You weren't taking his concerns seriously, so he made you listen. By destroying my relationships with everyone. By showing everyone what he's been dealing with. by making sure you couldn't just brush this off as him being jealous or insecure, by proving that his concerns were valid. After we hung up, I sat with her words. She was right, of course. David had been trying to tell me something for months, and I'd dismissed him every time. I'd made him feel like he was the problem, like his concerns were invalid, like he was being unreasonable. And when he finally found undeniable proof that his instincts were correct, that I was inappropriate with Tyler, that I had thought about crossing lines, that I had made jokes suggesting those lines weren't even real, he stopped trying to communicate and started documenting. I created this situation. I backed him into a corner where he felt like the only way to be heard was to show everyone exactly what I'd been doing. But even understanding that, even accepting some responsibility, I still can't fully accept that I deserve this. That public humiliation, family rejection, and divorce are proportional responses to inappropriate jokes. I didn't cheat. I keep coming back to that. Whatever else I did wrong, whatever lines I blurred or boundaries I tested, I didn't actually cheat. Doesn't that count for something? The answer, apparently, is no. Not to David, not to our families, not to anyone. In their eyes, I was already cheating. Emotionally, mentally, hypothetically. The physical act would have just been the final step in a process I'd already started. And maybe they're right. Maybe I've been lying to myself about my own intentions. Maybe I was building towards something I didn't want to admit I wanted. Maybe those jokes were confessions disguised as humor. I don't know anymore. All I know is that I'm alone now. My marriage is over. My reputation is destroyed. My family is ashamed of me. Tyler won't speak to me. David won't even look at me. And it's all because of words. Because of jokes. Because of hypothetical statements about scenarios that never happened. Or maybe it's because of what those words revealed. What those jokes meant. What those hypothetical statements suggested about my actual desires. I'm sitting here, trying to write this all out, trying to make sense of it, trying to find the narrative where I'm not the villain. Where I'm the misunderstood protagonist who made some mistakes but didn't deserve this level of punishment. But I'm struggling to find that narrative, because every time I try to defend myself, I hear David's calm voice. You don't get to invent rules that only apply to you. I said Tyler wouldn't count because he's family. David proved that family relationships are exactly what make betrayal worse, not better. I said it was just jokes. David proved that jokes revealed truth. I said I never acted on anything. David proved that thoughts and words and patterns mattered just as much as actions. He was right. About all of it. And that's the part I can't accept. Because accepting that I was wrong means accepting that I destroyed my own marriage through thoughtlessness and inappropriate comments and failure to respect boundaries I claimed didn't exist. It means accepting that David had every right to feel hurt and betrayed and angry. It means accepting that showing everyone what I'd been doing wasn't cruel revenge, but necessary proof. It means accepting that I'm the person everyone thinks I am. Someone who casually dismissed the value of fidelity, who disrespected her marriage, who treated her husband's brother as a potential backup option. And I'm not ready to accept that version of myself yet. So instead, I sit here in this empty house, still trying to convince myself that I was misunderstood. That context was missing. That everyone overreacted. Still trying to convince myself that I'm the victim here. Even though, deep down, I know I'm not. I didn't cheat, I just talked. But my words counted more than I wanted them to. My jokes revealed more than I intended them to. And now I have to live with what I said and what it meant. David was right about one thing. Family jokes do stay in the family. I just didn't realize I was the one being removed from the family when he said it. The divorce papers are still sitting on my kitchen table. I'll sign them eventually. Not because I agree that this is fair or proportional or justified, but because I have no other choice. David has moved on. Tyler wants nothing to do with me, Our families support his decision. Everyone agrees I crossed a line I claimed didn't exist. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Lines exist whether you acknowledge them or not. Boundaries matter whether you respect them or not. Words have consequences, whether you meant them literally or not. I spent so long convincing myself that my comments were harmless, that my jokes were innocent, that my thoughts didn't matter as long as I didn't act on them. But I was wrong. Everything matters. Every word, every joke, every comment that suggests you're not fully committed to your relationship. It all matters, and it all counts, even, especially, when you claim it doesn't.